Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
a modern witch's spoken word grimoire,
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense,
your cauldron and your crystals,
and join us
as we get
Back on the Broomstick.
Hi, and welcome to Back on the Broomstick. I'm Layla, and this episode is We Quit Witchcraft. For years, our practice was full of sabbats, esbats, workshops, and all the magic that comes with a living spiritual practice. And then, life got loud, and our witchcraft slowly slipped into the background. On this episode, we talk about why we let our practice slide, what it felt like to go from being deeply immersed in witchcraft to barely doing anything at all, and how we found our way back on the broomstick.
And I'm Chelle, and honestly, this is going to be a lovely conversation about how there's just 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week. So I'm pumped, and I'm really excited to kind of talk about how we circled back. I think getting back on the broomstick is probably more important to this story than falling off of it. So I'm excited to kind of talk about what it takes to add a few extra moments in each day.
And I'm going to slightly disagree, surprise, because I'm going to say that falling off the broomstick is just as important, because I think it's important for people to know that everybody does it at some point, to some extent, maybe not deeply or for a very long time, or maybe for a very long time. Maybe you'll go in an opposite direction. I don't know, but life is messy and you can't always predict how things will go or what energy you'll have or what interests you'll have, that kind of thing. So I think it's important to know that falling is okay. And it's what you do after you fall, I guess.
It is okay. And I do also want to just touch on, if you go down a rabbit hole that leads you down a path that's away from witchcraft, like, I ain't gonna yuck your yum, you do you. But I do think that there's a lot going on with a lot of people right now. And if you have kind of, I don't want to say fallen by the wayside, but if you're just starting to tilt off your broomstick, maybe there's some things that we can talk about that can kind of make you feel okay about that or tilt you back upright.
Now, we're going to gossip a little bit here, so not a derailing at all, but interestingly or weirdly or synchronistically, we have had the idea for this episode in a while. We wanted to talk about why we quit, in air quotes, witchcraft a while back and how we found our way back into our daily practice. So we've had this planned. But just recently in the news...
Wow, it's become a hot topic.
It really has. I do think that witchcraft has become paganism, heathenry. I think people are drawn to that now because of all the shit you said is going on, Chelle.
No, I'm just saying, I think that people that maybe didn't have a clear path are looking for a clear path, whatever that path may be.
Right, or one that makes more sense, I think. But while that's going on, we also have things in the news like Alex reads tarot. And if you're online in any sort of witchy space or tarot adjacent space, you will have heard the name Alex reads tarot. She is a very popular TikTok creator. What's she got? Like 1 million followers? Almost 1 million followers?
A lot, yeah.
A lot. And like her name says, she read tarot and people loved her. Recently, she's decided that her focus has changed and she has really quit tarot. Was she ever a witch? I was never a fan. Do you know?
That part I'm not sure. I am under the impression that there may have been ties to witchcraft, just how some of the stories have read, but I have not done my own investigative work.
Gotcha. She is a tarot reader, religion unknown, who was very, very popular and recently has decided to devote more time to her relationship with God and Christianity and is no longer going to be providing readings and has even deleted a lot of her videos off of TikTok.
But I do have to say that this is not the first person to have done that in the last couple of years. You got Kat Von D kind of did the same thing and also went so far as to cover up tattoos.
She also not only covered up all her tattoos, blacked them all out, but she threw away all of her stuff. I remember when this happened, I on one of the witchcraft subreddits, we were talking about it. People were like, not trying to stalk her or anything, but does anyone know when her garbage pickup day is?
Where's her dumpster at? Right.
Can't say I blame them. But yeah, she apparently threw everything out and also turned to Jesus. And Doreen Virtue is another one.
And again, I don't want to yuck nobody's yum, but I feel like
Oh, I kind of want to yuck Doreen Virtue's yum. Absolutely. She went from being new age. She's the one who came up with like the angel number stuff, right? Now, I love numbers, but she is now saying it's all demons and devils and evil. So, yeah, I'm going to kind of yuck that a little bit, maybe a lot of bit.
well, yeah, yeah, Dion Fortune kind of took kind of the wackadoodle route with it. But, I mean, we've all gone down rabbit holes, and sometimes those rabbit holes might lead you back to either what your family grew up with or what you grew up with. Right, wrong, or indifferent, you may feel that pull at some point to go back to that. But I think really the focus of this is just not even necessarily going back to something or switching to God or whatever you want to call it. But I think the focus of this is just more sometimes you are gung ho because we were gung ho, and sometimes you are so gung ho for so long that you just need a minute. And it doesn't mean that you've switched religions, you've switched your thought process, you've switched your spiritual path. It just means that sometimes there's a lot going on.
I think you hit on something that I've noticed too. And people have this question sometimes when they first start as witches, when they're witchlings. People revert to what they grew up with in times of stress and in times of trouble. And that early indoctrination's a little bit of a strong word, but those early ideas, those early lessons can be a powerful pull of nostalgia for people, especially when they're having a difficult time. And that can be a source of comfort to go back to those things that you knew in
Almost
childhood.
instinctual.
Yeah. So that might have something to do with it. You know, sometimes you have some sort of crisis, some stress to whatever degree, and that can make you turn towards things that bring you comfort and nostalgia.
And at a time like right now, there's a lot of, I know I've done it, I know you've done it, you thinking back to a better time. Wow, do I sound like a boomer? But thinking back to a better time, and when we were kids growing up, the world was not as bad as we thought it was. But then when you think back to that time, you may think back to part of the things that made me feel safe and comfort at that time could have been religion or what have you. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
you're so distraught with the current times that you're looking to find something from the past, and
Right.
religion may be a part of that.
Right. And I'm not saying everybody does that. I mean, you and I have gone through tough times, and it's never made me want to turn to Christianity. Not that I really grew up Christian. Like, my mother is a heathen and
Right.
loves being a heathen. She was a self-described agnostic with me growing up. My step family at the time was Methodist and would take me to Methodist, like Sunday
Stuff.
school things and Sunday stuff. And I did love Christmas Eve service. I did love Christmas Eve service in that church was fantastic. But I also got in trouble a lot for questioning things. But anyway, my point is like you didn't turn back to
No.
Christianity. I know you were kind of raised in a lax kind of Christian environment as well, right?
Right. I mean, I played the handbells in the Methodist church choir in sixth grade because there was a boy there I liked. But I also
Right.
I found there was a beauty in that midnight Christmas Eve service,
Yeah.
which I laugh at because
So
when I
pagan.
think back to the nostalgia, I'm like, man, do I love a freaking serious ritual.
Right? It's the pagan parts of church that I liked back in the
Boy,
day.
I like a good serious ritual.
Right? With the incense and the candles and the singing. I fucking love that. But
Exactly.
but I think we also just said that neither of our families were super seriously religious. So maybe that's
Right.
part of maybe that's why it doesn't have such a draw for us. I'm not sure, but it didn't make sense to me. But anyway, so these people in the public eye have kind of dramatically or in a big way quit paganism or quit something to do with paganism. some nicer than others. Like the way Alex quit, that's her thing. She's taking care of her own stuff. I don't have any feelings one way or another about that. Doreen Virtue, however,
Yeah, Kat Von D did a little drama, and Doreen Virtue, wow, talk about over the top. Jeez.
seriously, whatever. So now you and I did not quit. I mean, the funny title aside, we went from learning about witchcraft, growing up into this lovely pagan community, going to classes, then forming a coven, leading rituals, and then doing our own classes, doing our own workshops and teaching and growing the coven. We were doing a lot and then we quit.
I think that's another lesson to be learned in all of this too, that I'd love to pass on to folks is there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet, and you'll also hear this from people right to your face that you've got to put in the time, and you've got to put in the work, and you've got to put in the study. And I think that there was a long time where we did a lot of putting our time in, a lot of work and a lot of study, and we weren't really balancing. I think we
Oh.
weren't balancing that as much as we should, and it got a lot after a lot of years. It got a
You are
lot.
so right. And in all of my notes, nowhere did I put burnout, but oh my goodness, are you so freaking right?
Yeah.
That's exactly true. We were doing a ton. We were doing a lot. And we had families. We had young families at the time.
When we weren't putting on a ritual or teaching a workshop, we were learning something new and going down another deep
We were
dive.
doing an esbat with the coven. We were doing magic together. We were doing classes. Oh, wow. We were running kids around and jobs, taking care of everything. Grab onto your broomstick, witches. Back after these messages. Hey, witches. Sorry for the interruption, but we have got to bring you the best collaboration ever. Back on the broomstick and the witch's moon.
We love these people. These are products that we've actually purchased.
The Witch's Moon is a witchy subscription box service and so much more.
They have a very comprehensive online market. So if boxes aren't your thing, if subscriptions aren't your thing, totally get it. But I could dump a paycheck in like one shopping order at this joint.
The jewelry, the crystals, the candles, the herbs, the books, the exclusive, beautiful items.
They have tarot decks that I don't have, I just want to point out.
There's a lot of love and work and energy that goes into this, and you can absolutely tell.
They curate these boxes for folks to be able to feel that magic every day. And I mean, isn't that really what we're trying to do here is feel the magic every day and make it an everyday thing?
So check out thewitchesmoon.com. Whether you're looking for books and tarot, gorgeous jewelry, or monthly witchy supplies, they've got you covered.
Also, we have a discount code. You can use the code BOTB10.
That'll get you 10% off items in the Moon Market. It does not apply to subscription boxes, but you can use that on pretty much anything else in the Moon Market. Back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Oh, wait, we got to go back to the episode. You all got me in the mood to shop now.
No shopping till after the work is done, Chelle.
And that's where it got to the point where like there was only 24 hours in a day and something had to give. Something had to, at least from my perspective, I had two young kids. They were both active in activities and sports and community stuff. And I was active as shit in everything, and something had to give, and it had to be my stuff.
Oh, gosh. Oh, that's a whole other episode. Let's not go there about the things that we do as caretakers and sacrificing ourselves so that everything else can go smoothly. That's part of it, but we're going to box that away for a different episode. Because, yeah, I do that too. I'm sure a lot of our listeners do that too. So that went aside. But one thing I was thinking of as well is that I think part of why I personally, and I think you too, were able to sustain being as witchy as we were for as long as we did is because of that beautiful pagan community that sadly doesn't exactly exist in the same form anymore. But how fortunate were we to have that community so that we could, on days when we just couldn't muster the energy ourselves, we knew that someone else had it handled. Someone else was going to take care of that for us. Okay, I'm super busy, but I know this person has called Litha. And so I can just show up to Litha. I'll bring a little food for the communal feast. I'll bring a couple dollars when they pass the hat. And I'll go and I'll be in community. I'll have this lovely ceremony, this beautiful ritual, and I'll go home and go back into my mundane life. We had that. We didn't have to make that ourselves. We could just show up and be part of that.
Yeah, and that definitely was an integral part to the longevity of us being able to sustain.
Absolutely.
But I think about the folks that don't have that community,
Right.
and that can make it harder. Sometimes motivating yourself is a lot
Exactly.
harder than herding the cats. People think herding cats is hard, but sometimes motivating your damn self is harder. But community is, I think personally, it is worth it.
I think it's vital.
Every person who is seeking that connection to make the effort to either find or co-create or create community.
If you're looking around for community and it isn't there, as hard as it is and as sucky as it might be your job to create that community. But
Exactly.
so we did have community to help keep us going, even though we had super busy outside lives and we're taking on more witchy shit as well. Then you got divorced.
I did. That kind of affected the covenant a little bit.
Yeah, and that impacted the coven for sure. Then later, not too long after that, my husband and I moved to California. And that was
Dicks.
the death knell of all of it. Our community around that time was also kind of fracturing, not because of us, just because I think it's one of those things where, everybody kind of got busy. It's one of those things where have you ever been at a concert and somebody's crowd surfing and it's all wonderful and fun and games until for some reason that unspoken trust you all have
Everybody stops.
ceases and everyone thinks someone else is going to get the person that's surfing and there's a hole that just appears underneath them and they fall down. That just kind of happened to community. It wasn't anyone did it. It just kind of, we all turned away and paid attention to other things at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, and and around that time too, I think it was getting hard to fit into my schedule. Definitely facilitating was not an option at that point.
No, so much work.
And sometimes be like, well, Layla's going, I should go, or I'm gonna go because Layla's going. And then
Right.
when Layla moves to California, I'm like, well, Layla ain't here, so I got shit to do.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna sleep in, or the excuses just kept coming at that point.
And then I get to California. What looks like a short jaunt over to LA. Spoiler, nothing is a short jaunt in Southern California. um,
I
uh,
can literally say the same about Massachusetts, funnily enough.
and I move into this giant state of liberal, hippie, witchy types into the most conservative military area that, that little boxes song, that's where I lived. And there was a dearth. And at the time, I did not have the energy or the strength, at least I didn't think I did, to start a community. I just kept looking for one, and there weren't any. And I didn't do a lot. It kind of dropped at that point.
And I kind of had a similar experience. It fell off. Those first couple years that you were gone, I just lived life and did things and got kids grown up into adults and did all of the mom things. But then, I decided to move to Salem, and we've talked about this at nauseum. I had this vision, I'm going to move to Salem and I'm going to get back into witchcraft, and it's all going to be great. And that was just kind of a brick wall for years. And then it just was like you were gone, and that was shitty, and I wasn't doing witchy stuff, and that was shitty. And somehow we ended up on Zoom one day.
Yep. And the rest is history. And it did get better from there because we were both we had been talking. So we're both in very populated areas where you would think there was more witchy shit going on than there was.
You would think.
You'd think. And COVID hit, things were weird. And right before COVID hit, I had started pulling my cards out more often. I had started working magic a little bit more, doing rituals to observe the seasons just a little bit more, saying hello to the full
I
moon.
started buying more tarot. I started buying more
There
tarot.
you go. That's when you started your witchy delivery service stuff right to your door, I think.
I was like, man, I can get people to come from these shops downtown to my house because of COVID. Yeah.
All right, let's slight detour. Let's talk about the tendency to collect stuff as a substitute for actually practicing witchcraft because I've done it and I'm going to call you out because I know you've done it.
I think that's a real thing. And I think that, even the dollar store and Goodwill can damn be poisoned sometimes.
Well, sometimes that's all I can afford is getting witchy shit at Goodwill.
And I'm not knocking it. And I have stuff from the dollar store and Goodwill, and I love other people's shit. But there's almost like this thought process that, wow, I haven't done a spell in like 4 months. I should do something. And then all of a sudden it's freaking Halloween and you find yourself at Spirit because you got two kids clamoring for their $50 costumes. And you're like, hey, Spirit has these cool cauldrons, and Spirit has their own tarot deck, and Spirit has this and that and the damn other. And you're like, well, if I buy it and I set it somewhere in an altar like setup, I
Uh-huh.
must be doing something productive towards witchcraft. You are not. You are not. You're just buying shit.
Yeah, you're just buying shit. But the small things do matter. And I think,
There's a fine line, yes.
yeah, there's a fine line between like collecting stuff and actually doing small witchy shit for sure. And collecting tarot and amassing your addection also does not count. But what really did help me wasn't the stuff. It was the little day-to-day habits. I mean, I already journaled a lot, so I started adding a tarot pull to it again. And just trying to do one thing a day, really. That's what I remember from when I first started doing it. Right before I contacted you and was like, I miss you so much. We need to do something witchy all the time. I had started doing just one little witchy thing a day, even if it was just reading a book or pulling a card and journaling about it. A focused meditation, something small, but tried to intentionally be doing it every single day. And when I talked to you about it, you had been doing something similar and starting to get back on your broomstick in small ways too.
That's when I broke my 30-year rule of I will never use a Rider Waite deck ever. And when I started, thinking I need to start doing something again, that's when I whipped out that Pamela Coleman Smith Centennial deck. And for the first time ever, actually started using a Rider Waite Smith deck to read with, not just have in my box of collections. And I think with me, I started it out with tarot, but I needed to do it in a not in the mindset of pick up where I left off, but kind of go back to basics. And I think using the Rider Waite deck was kind of my personal way of going back to basics. I'm gonna pull that Ellen Cannon Reed the Witch's Tarot deck any day or night. But at that particular point in my life, I just didn't feel like I should be jumping back into where I left off, and I needed to kind of backpedal a little bit. And not just with tarot, with a bunch of things, but tarot was the catalyst to that. And starting with that Rider Waite deck, which I'd sworn off literally for 30 years. I'd never touched a Rider Waite deck to read with until this.
I love that we were talking in the beginning about people reverting to the religion of their childhood. And here you go back to the basic Rider Waite
That
Smith
I
deck.
swore never to use.
So yeah, there's something about going back to basics, going back to comfort. And that's kind of what I did too, is I went back to bare bones witchcraft, basic witchcraft. That's what brought me comfort. That's what brought me joy. It gave me a touchstone in the day, something small that I could do. Go back to our like 15 witchy minutes episode kind of thing,
Right,
right?
right.
Just, that's all you need is just one little touchstone. And that really did snowball. That very much snowballed, not just because we started a podcast and we're talking about it, but every day that I did a little thing kind of built on it and it felt great. And the more I did it and the better I felt about it, the more I wanted to do.
Well, and I think with me, another thing, the stars kind of aligned around that same time with me. My children became adults and were out and on with their lives. I became a grandma. So I had a little bit more personal time. And one of the things, it wasn't just tarot. I mean, tarot is always going to be there, but I just started kind of taking more time out in nature. When I was up in Salem, I was really loving being that close to the water. Even on work days, I would go spend, if I had to go into the office, I would go spend my lunch down at the ocean. There are some wooded areas that close to the beach, believe it or not. And I would try to get out that way a little bit. So getting back to the stuff is all great and everything, but it's just stuff. I'll be the first one to want to spend $1,000 on bullshit witchcraft stuff. But it wasn't the stuff that pulled me back. When I went to Salem, I was so enamored by living down the street from all of those stores. It was getting a little ridiculous there. But that wasn't what pulled me back. It wasn't the wands and the cauldrons and the crystals. And it was the water and the tides and the storms coming in off the water and being able to go out and find that little patch of woods, even if it was the Damlin woods and you didn't know if you were going to get friggin' shanked while you were there, but there was trees, damn it. The only way I can say it, it was the goddess that pulled me back. It wasn't the stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't the shit. It wasn't the statues. And it was the goddess that pulled me back.
And that's exactly it. It was the small day-to-day things. It was just the little things of being intentionally in a witchy space and in a witchy mind space that made it an easier path to walk, I think. And you don't need all the stuff. Not you don't need any of it. What you need is to find like that quiet moment. And I think recognizing that witchcraft, like a lot of things in your life, are going to go through cycles. They're going to go through seasons, and sometimes there's going to be a dormant period. There's going to be a winter in your life, in your witchcraft, and taking that as a time to rest or maybe honoring it. Even if you looking back on it, you're like, oh, I've been in this like dearth. I haven't done any witchcraft. I haven't done anything witchy in a long time. Instead of beating yourself up about it, look at it more as a quiet time, as a time of being dormant, of being slower, and then start thinking about spring. Start thinking about it as a way to come back up out of that. And it doesn't have to be fast. You can take your time, just like spring does.
And I like that analogy because I think not just in a spiritual sense, but I think in a lot of ways, people go through cycles where some things in your mind have to go dormant for a little while you focus on other things. But that gives you time to kind of reset and replant your seeds and ideas. What my focuses were in witchcraft overall in general 15 years ago are not what they are now. So like my focuses are different. I will say, and I know that I've been asked this online before, there is a period of dormant, and I've made clear multiple times that I was kind of grabbed by Hecate from the get-go years and years and decades ago. And I have been asked, was that the same after that period? And I will say that maybe interests have changed. I've always had a Celtic leaning throughout, before, during, and after my little break. But there are going to be people out there that are going to, maybe 20 years ago, maybe you were all about Yemaya or Pele or Kali. And now all of a sudden you've been dormant for a while and you're into Aryan Rod or Caradwin. For me personally, break or not, Hecate's had her claws deep in me forever. But that's my experience. And that doesn't mean that that's going to be everybody's experience. So you may have had a connection with a deity that was deep and hard, and then you went dormant for a while, you circle back to witchcraft and your spirituality, and you may find a different deity calling to you. That's okay. No, that didn't happen to me, but you know how opinions are. They're kind of like stuff. We all got one. So that my experience was, I just wanted to point out that even after the break, I kind of had that same relationship throughout with Hecate, but that might not be everyone's experience.
An important thing to keep in mind is that after dormancy, your whole outlook might be different. Deities are one part of it, but the rest of it could be that your entire way of being a witch could be different. You could have different interests. You could have different things you want to research. You could have different focuses. And that's also okay. That's part of growing as a person. That's part of growing in your religion and in your beliefs. So sometimes you might find parts of your practice that no longer suit you. We talk a lot about getting rid of things that no longer serve you. Well, that's part of your practice too. Reevaluating, looking at what works for you, what doesn't work for you, getting new information and changing what you do because of that is all part of growth. And that's an important part of being a responsible pagan as well, I think.
And that's really kind of the point I wanted to make, is that maybe not everything has kind of flipped the script for me personally, but it very well could for someone else. And that's
Right.
100% okay. You
Mm-hmm.
know, maybe you were all about Celtic mysticism 10 years ago, and now all of a sudden you are going down some Egyptian path that suits you perfectly. That's great. Keep on keeping on.
Exactly. The important part about coming back is going with what works for you, even if it means changing what you did in the past or staying
Right.
the same with what you did in the past. Go with what's working and go slow, I think. Burnout is a thing, and I think
It
that
is.
that did contribute to kind of why we went dormant for a while. But I also think that the reverse can be true too. If you jump back in too much, too hard, too fast, you're also going to experience burnout on the flip side of trying to come back into it.
Right.
So take it a little slowly. Make sure do things that work with your life as they are. Don't try to change everything all the time. When we talked about that 15 witchy minutes and talking about fitting witchcraft into your daily life, we talk about make your bed with intention. Do your nightly skin cleansing routine can be part of your glamour magic. Or when you're sitting there having your tea in the morning, staring off into space, use that liminal mental space time to set some intentions for the day. Work with what you're already doing to start with. Just make it witchy.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have the ability over time, you know, try to work that up, work your way up to see if you can pull off a ritual every now and then. You know, maybe try
Right.
to do a full moon ritual once in a while. You don't even have to commit to monthly. Like, be realistic.
Exactly.
I think being realistic is probably the most important step. Just be realistic and don't beat yourself up.
Yes, I love that. That's so perfect because you're gonna miss rituals. You're going to miss the day. You're gonna be like, oh shit, yesterday was Beltane. I'm failure as a witch. I'm awful.
No,
Nah,
you're
you're not.
not.
You're human. Just do it when you think about it.
I've literally done it a week later. It's
Yeah,
fine.
it's fine. If you forget something, if you have to read your dedication to your deity, your offering to the elementals from a piece of paper and you didn't memorize it, that is okay. There's no problem with that. Do what works, do what makes it work in your life and what feels good to you so that you can sustain it. Because if you hate it and it's hard to fit into your life, it's not sustainable.
And you know, I think that goes right along with maybe check out some different stuff. You know, like I said, I've been taking a dive down this powwow magic thing. You know, maybe there's something that you hadn't explored before that may kind of suck you back in. You know, kind of look and see what's out there and see if something has kind of grabbed your attention that maybe hadn't grabbed your attention before, or maybe you didn't know about it before, because that could kind of be a good quote unquote gateway back.
And I'm going to bring this back to community. And I'm glad because we're talking to my favorite community creator, Shannon, in an upcoming episode. But I'm bringing it back to community because having other people keep you accountable can be an excellent way to stay on track, even if
Oh,
it's
yeah.
digital people. If you don't have a local community that you can go see in person, find a group online. There's a lot of places where you can find community nowadays. You can find some people that you enjoy working with. We have the lovely CCC community here, Crystal City Circle. And in that community, we have a lovely, very witchy person. And he started a weekly challenge, like a magical witchy challenge thing.
The best way I can describe it is like a 12-week challenge.
It's amazing, absolutely wonderful. Now, some people are every day posting and working together, and he has this whole outline that people can follow, and they're an amazing community in this group. I was supposed to do it, and I am doing it. I just don't post. I'm terrible at the social aspect, and I also don't deal well with expectations. So, not so great about posting about it, but I have been doing a lot of it. And the point here is that finding a group like that, if you can find someone that keeps you accountable, where they have maybe an outline of things and you're supposed to post in the community about your experiences, doing that with other people can make it easier to stay on track.
Light the fire under your ass. There, just say
Exactly.
it.
If you know that Jamie or Vinny or Jen from community are going to get on your ass if you don't post about what you did for the fire week, then you're more likely to go do the thing and then post about it.
Now, from my perspective, I have a little bit of a guilt complex. So I actually send the facilitator screenshots of my handwritten notes at the end of every week.
There you go. Participate the way that works for you. Some people are very active in the online discussion group. Some people, like me, we're lurkers. We do our own thing in the background. Some people, like Chelle, kind of modify it, makes it work for her in the way that works best. But the point is that having other people with you can help you to do that. And even if you're like me and you're kind of not doing it the same way as everybody else does because you beat to your own drum, that's fine. If you do it a little quieter because you don't necessarily want to jump in with all the people, also fine. And like the lovely, wonderful people online they're having a blast. They're having a fabulous witchy time in the group chat. So there's a lot of different ways to participate if you can find an online group to help keep you accountable and help to maybe give you that little kick in the ass. You don't have to just do it by yourself.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be in person with people in your town. Start a damn Discord, start a Facebook group. I know Facebook isn't really the thing as much anymore, but start a Discord group. Come up with challenges for each other and just be supportive. I think that's the most important thing with community is that support system, that accountability. I feel like support system is a better way to say it because these are people that you can also grow with magically. And, not only are you building friendships and such, but, you're learning and gaining knowledge from each other, sometimes consciously and sometimes subconsciously. But the value of connection, I think, is more important than ever. I can't even stress that. More important than ever.
And if you don't want to start your own group, I'm going to plug our lovely Facebook group run by the amazing, the witchy, the phenomenal Helen JoJo. We love
We
you,
love
Helen.
Helen JoJo.
Go to Facebook and look up Back on the Broomstick podcast discussion group. And that is a fabulous, wonderful group of witches. Anytime anyone's got a question, there's always great answers there. So if you're looking for a community and you haven't found one, I know Facebook's kind of a cesspool, but that is definitely a bright light in that space.
And Layla and I do lurk on it. We will admit that we don't always comment or post, but we are absolute lurkers. We know what's going on the podcast discussion group Facebook page, even if we
Indeed.
don't just outwardly say so.
That's right. Well, that's why we quit witchcraft. Hopefully, next time we go dormant, it doesn't last for quite so long, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. Kind of baked into my life.
Yeah, no, we're back on the upswing, man. We're in it for the
Most
long haul this
definitely.
go round.
Happily on the broomstick. So I hope you all have enjoyed this episode of Back on the Broomstick. Please like, subscribe, send us some email, send us some snail mail. Please give us a review. It helps the show out and helps people to find us.
And if you are looking for community and looking to connect with folks, definitely check out Mandragora Magica online. Or again, as Layla loud and proud says, If you can't find one, make one.
That's right. So we will see you next week. Until then, be wise, be wicked,
And keep it witchy.